Here's the thing, when you can put yourself in the 1% and look awesome and you look around and everybody else doesn't look so great, it puts you at a different level mentally. Not forget about physically, but mentally. You've you've beaten them already. I don't have to say a word. People just look at you and go, "Wow, that guy works his ass off. He's dedicated." Remember, motivation only takes you so far. It's how dedicated are you to putting in the time and the work every single day. So for me, that's celebrating. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Cast. Small steps, big changes. Everyone knows what our motto is, but I always like to reiterate it every week. It's obviously helping others, improving ourselves, proving our self-worth, and more importantly, being a gracious person and being thankful. So this episode, we're going to go back to the Q&A. I had a whole bunch of people really tell me they love that and write in a few more questions. Anytime people that are listening and they want to send in questions, um, Ethan or Diane always fields them if I don't see them, and we can put them on and do it this way, which I think is pretty cool. And we just we have this dialogue. People have some really good questions out there, and the best part about it is I'm going to give you the most truthful answer because I lived it. Not a doctor, not a lawyer, not going to make something up out of a book. This is stuff that I did. And again, the stuff that I did and do doesn't mean that you guys will do the same thing. Every person is different. So I like to tell people that, my mindset is different than other people's mindset. And it doesn't mean that you can't ask for help from a doctor and do it a different way than I did. I just did everything pretty much cold turkey, which is not always the best way to do things. But I like to share that with people, not because I'm looking to be like this tough guy, more because I like to let people know that there's all different ways that you can, battle your addictions. And that's really what we deal with on a daily basis. Remember what I said about last episode. The biggest thing about addiction, I believe, my wife would love. I'd love to someday. She's going to come on this podcast, and we're going to have a true sit down because she's a psych major. I think that's why she loves me. She gets to get inside this brain. But I don't know if you're born with addictions or you create addictions. I don't know. I know I've always been compulsive. I know I've always been super competitive. I know I've always wanted to win. So I don't know if that comes hand in hand with having addictions. I know that my great grandfather was, obviously I said this in the last episode, had a drinking problem. I have other people in my family that don't do well with alcohol. Um, but I'm sure they wouldn't do well with all the other things either. So I don't know. Is it hereditary? That's probably. Um, but can you be born into, I mean, can you create it yourself? I think so, through stress and escaping and never getting to the root cause of the problem. But anyways, I wanted to share that with you. Let's I wrote down some of the questions that people had written in about. Let's start with the first one. It says, "How many attempts did it take you to quit drinking? I've tried many times and it never seems to click. Any advice?" Wow, that's a first of all, thank you for that question, but it's how many times did I try to quit? I don't Here's what you have to understand about me and how my mind works. If you if somebody tells me I need to quit, I'm never quitting. Never. So because my wife is who she is, she said it in this way. So this is what I mean. Again, maybe, and again, if you don't have a significant other or somebody that can help you with this, and I know why she did it this way because she's ridiculously smart, but she knows that I don't like being told what to do. So her answer to me was, and it had nothing to do with me, by the way, first about drinking. She said, I'm quitting because it doesn't make me feel good and it's ruining my life and it's making me feel like shit in the morning and I'm not productive and it gives me anxiety and it's like all the negative things. Then she turns around and goes, but for you, you've never put me in harm's way. You've never treated me disrespectfully. You can do what you want, but you know you're bloated. You know that it's poison, but that's up to you. So you do what you want to do, but I'm going to stop. So, how my mind works, I go, okay, well, she's not telling me that I have to quit, even though I went to bed that night going, probably should quit. So, the way I dealt with it was, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to quit for a month. And everybody does, oh, dry January. I didn't, I said, I'm just going to quit for 1 month. And then 30 days went by, and I'm like, each week I started feeling better and better, and I was sleeping better. And again, remember, I used to work off of 3 hours of sleep. So, I was sleeping much better, feeling better, less less anxious, less angry. All this positive stuff was coming out. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go 1 more month. Then I went another month. And then before I knew it, it was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months. And I'm like, man, I feel great. God, I don't need alcohol. And I turned to her, I go, babe, I think I'm going to quit now. And she always giggles. So she knew I was going to do that. But like, I didn't, I don't do well with people telling me I need to, or so I did it one time because I thought I did it on my own, but it was kind of set up by my wife. So I kind of had help. So if you don't have help, then that's why you go to these groups sometimes. Or, you get to, maybe it doesn't even have to be like AA. You can get into these smaller groups that could actually, that's probably what I would have done. Because I actually did have to go to GA, not to get off topic of drinking, but I did have to go to Gamblers Anonymous because, like I said, every vice, I've had it, done it. And I went to these big groups. And what I realized was there was a lot of people in there that were just there because they had to be there and they, like me, and they were lying to everybody. But I feel like sometimes when you get in these smaller groups, like when there's 2, 3 people, that's when those people have hit rock bottom and you can really dig deep and get to the root cause of the problem. So that would be my advice. I use the gummies for sleep. I can't seem to sleep without them, but I don't want to be dependent forever. What are your thoughts? Yeah, you got to get off them. Bottom line is, if you're okay, again, I'm going to give you me, and then maybe this will help you because I'm extreme. My wife always says that you're extreme. You're not human sometimes. Just like the alcohol, I abused the gummies because I did the same thing. Oh, it helps me sleep. But the funny thing is that I would take a gummy, that was in the beginning. I would start take them to sleep, and they were the 10 milligram gummies. And then I was like, I got my marijuana card. So then in Florida, which is like cake to get. I think it's cake to get anywhere for, if you go see a doctor and you pay the fee for the year, then you walk into, there's a dispensary every block. And I remember walking into the dispensary and I'm like, oh my God, I was like a little kid in the candy store. I was like, what is this? And what does that do? And then what's RSO, Rick Simpson oil? What does that do? And they're like, oh, well, that really kind of knocks you out. And I'm like, I'll take one of those. So I went from 10 milligram gummies to taking about 5 or 6 gummies a night with Rick Simpson oil, like getting blasted because I have no self control. So I can't. The gummies are just another for me to tell you that it's just another escape. If you really want to take magnesium, there's so many healthier ways you can take that'll help you calm your body down. They make magnesium gummies. They even have the Ollie. They have sleep. They have stress ones. Um, and there's no, they're all natural stuff in there that you can take. Melatonin too. That's another one that you can take. You just got to be careful when you're young. You know, if you have a teenager or 11 or 12-year old that's having sleep problems, you don't want them depending on that because it's the same thing. You're teaching them that you need to depend on something to go to sleep, and it breaks their growth pattern of how you're supposed to sleep. But when you're older, and again, I'm not a doctor, so please don't quote me on this, but I think it's okay if you take melatonin every night, a small dose of it, than taking a weed gummy. Again, we've made it so easy and so socially acceptable. I like using that word because that's what it is. Once the government gets their tax dollars, it's it's done. It's game over. It's part of who we are. Like cigarettes, like alcohol. Now you got weed. Weed. Like when I was a kid, weed growing up was like if you had weed on you, it was as bad as like having cocaine. Nobody smoked weed when I was a kid. I'm not saying nobody. I mean, people go to parties. It was there, but it wasn't like it is today, where you turn around and everybody's got a vape stick in their hand that you don't know if it's just vape or if there's weed in there, and you're hitting that thing as soon as you wake up. So it becomes an addictive thing, just like a vape. That's all mindset, and that's all escaping from whatever issues you're trying to deal with. I don't care what anybody says. My oldest son, so proud of him. He has my kind of mind. Like when he puts his mind to something, it's over. And here's the thing, I'll share this with you. I know he was probably smoking weed at 15 years old. But again, I was a hypocrite. I knew but didn't want to know. How's that? And I thought it was better than him drinking more than the other kids. Still a drug, still horrible, still addicting. And he did it all the way through college. Then one day he said, "Pops, that's enough." And he shut it down. Proud of him. Super proud of him. Just not like, oh, I got to go talk to someone. He just said, that's it. And I mean, he was doing it for a long time. Talking 8, 10 years. It's like I was on the opioids 8 years. So Delvecchio's brains are a little twisted, but we know, like, we definitely know right from wrong, but we sometimes don't want to hear it. And we have to do it on our own time. Hopefully God was with us and stays with us and makes sure that we do it on a time where he keeps us alive. That's an important thing for me. Like, the gummies are just another avenue for people to escape. Because, like I said, when you walk into that store, it's like an adult Disney World. And everybody's so friendly and cool, and you get to tip people, and then you turn around and they got cream that you can put on to help. And by the way, the cream works because I use that too for like pain. But there's other ways you can handle that. And I'm not saying, listen, here's the other thing again, please, people. There's a lot of people out there that are hurting that need that. And I say, please use it. Like, some people that have cancer, it helps them get over the sickness when they're, going through chemo. Please. I'm not saying that people shouldn't use it, but we use it as such a recreational, everyday thing like alcohol. And you wonder why our society's fucked. But when you put that much evil in the world, my uncle always said, Evil will always overtake good. Told me that. Never really thought about that until just now, but a lot of times that's true. Like I said in last week's podcast, it's a lot harder to be positive and be a good person every single day than it is to just jump in the mix and be a negative and finding a shortcut. That's the world we live in today. You really put yourself in the 1% when you work really hard to stay in the moment and be positive. So I kind of went off on it, but like I just, it's a touchy subject for me because I get upset because I don't think we should have these stores. It's my personal opinion. They shouldn't be around. Like, I think there is a need for helping people. And maybe some people do need it to help them sleep, but like you become very dependent on something where you could actually use something much more natural. I'm not saying weed is out of the ground and it is a plant, but what I'm saying is there's things that don't make you kind of go off into la la land or you know escape, and you can still get a really good night's sleep with something like magnesium or magnesium gummies. What do you do if you need to have surgery or even injury or an injury and you need to manage pain? Ooh, well, that's a perfect time for that question because I just went through surgery with my hip. And the last time I did the hip, and this time I used no pain meds, a little bit of Tylenol. And that's not great for my liver because everybody knows that I have fatty liver from all the years of drinking and partying. That's what we think it is. And the shitty food, processed food, combination of all three. So I have to be careful with that. But I have a high tolerance for pain. So that's what I mean. Like, I didn't, the opioid thing, the painkillers were a place for me to escape. That's really what it was for me. It wasn't about, I mean, I was in a lot of back pain. Don't get me wrong. It helped, like when I was playing golf, but it was really, I didn't realize it was really my hip that was causing the back pain. But when I would take that, it would make the pain go away, obviously. But it also helped me escape. Yeah. So I don't, that question, again, I'm a little, like my wife says, you're not human sometimes. I don't like, my pain tolerance is very high. So like, I'll just probably grind through it. Like, I look at it this way, like the first day, like through surgery, they give you a blocker so you don't really feel anything. And then like, you're going to suffer for like 3 or 4 days and then things will start getting better. The swelling goes down and you just put some ice on it and just keep your mouth shut and just go. Unless, it hurts that much, but I don't have a great answer for that. I don't know what you're supposed to do. I think there's creams that you can get. Our doctor did say. I wish my wife was on this episode. She'd know better. Um, what do you do to celebrate if you can't drink? Oh, like celebrate at a party or something. Like, I usually what I do is I grab a seltzer with cranberry in it, and most times people think I'm drinking cranberry vodka and soda. So I mean I don't. I think that's what the question is. Do you think what do you do to celebrate? Oh, well, here's the other thing. I do that like if we're at a party, but if we're going to do something, like I don't base it around like I base it off of food. Cuz my wife loves to eat, I love to eat good food. Um so that's like a fun thing for me. Like and to celebrate, like I like to work out now. So working out sometimes is a great celebration for me cuz you get that same high as if you were like playing sports or and you're working out and you feel great. Here's the thing, when you can put yourself in the 1% and look awesome, and you look around and everybody else doesn't look so great, it puts you at a different level mentally. Not forget about physically, but mentally. You've you've beaten them already. I don't have to say a word. People just look at you and go, "Wow, that guy works his ass off. He's dedicated." Remember, motivation only takes you so far. It's how dedicated are you to putting in the time and the work every single day. So for me, that's celebrating. The old T was celebrating was like, let me party as much as I can until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then get 3 hours of sleep, and then try to do it all over again the next day. Not very productive. Shitty way to live. Very empty feeling. This way is very fulfilling. Now, here's the thing I do get pissed at about this with my wife, because I want to eat a lot of shit that I'm not allowed to. And she always is like, has to say no to it. But she does it because she loves me. And she knows what's best for me. Because I will not say no to pretty much anything you put in front of me. I don't have a problem with, I told you, zero self control. If you put a pizza in front of me, I want to eat the whole thing. But yeah, so celebrating is, and like I said, if we're gonna go out to a party and then to celebrate, like I'll have seltzer and club soda with a cranberry. And then usually now those types of, if we're at like a party or a wedding or something, we're usually the first two to leave, because we say hello to everybody, we mingle a little bit, and then everybody else is getting their groove on and drinking, and we're kind of like, okay, we got to get up tomorrow morning and we got to work out. Like, what was the reaction from your family members or your mother or father the first time they caught you with like alcohol or drugs? Um, so that's a good question. But for me, I didn't really test the limits when I was younger. I was so hyper focused on sports and I hate to say it, but girls, and I didn't really like. I didn't. It wasn't a big thing for me, so I didn't like getting caught. Necessarily wasn't uh, a thing, but my mom. We just talked about this the other day. The reason why she was always on my ass when I was in college about not drinking was because her dad was a very bad alcoholic, and she could see that I have that personality. So it used to make her very nervous, and she was right. So she would always harp on it. But again, now me being 21 at that point, I was supposedly a grown man, but you're really not. So um, they weren't, listen, if I'm being completely honest, I know, I'm sure my dad wasn't happy either. Neither one of them were happy. And drugs didn't start for me until I was much older. Just crazy. I did everything kind of backwards. Um, Most people don't, they try to dabble in that stuff. And again, not that I'm condoning it, but most people try to do it when they're younger. And that's where you see that happening but I did it a little bit later in life. So hopefully that answered your question. Question was, when I used to go to casinos and gamble, was I ever accused of cheating, or like, because I played blackjack pretty heavily. That's really what I played. But I never was, even on my big wins, I never was really accused of like counting cards or anything like that, because I wasn't. I mean, I did have friends that knew how to do it, and he's an older gentleman that actually I'm still friends with, that actually isn't allowed in casinos. because he was banned from counting. They caught him counting cards. Tremendous poker player, very unique individual, funny guy. But no, me personally, even in my big wins, and they were thousands and thousands of dollars, I guess I lost enough too, where it didn't matter. They didn't think I was cheating, so they never accused me of that. You gotta remember, I was going out to Vegas in the late '90s, early 2000s, all the way up until just recently. And I'll give you the landscape of how he asked, like, when you were, and I wasn't like a whale or anything. I wasn't $1 million player, but I was a decent sized gambler. When I first started going out to Las Vegas, they would fly me out, like they would pay for my airfare. They'd put me up in a big giant suite. Um, I didn't have to pay for a single thing the whole time I was there, but they knew I was there to gamble. So it's funny, as time went on, Steve Wynn kind of changed this whole he's brilliant. Wow, what a brilliant guy. Just brilliant. But he realized that the nightclubs were his moneymaker. So what he did was he bought the best DJs like Avicii and David Guetta and Tiesto, and he paid them. I don't know. Let's just say it was $1 million a month. I don't know, maybe something like that. Whatever the number is, and they would play at the nightclubs. You know, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I can't. I gotta tell you, like the gambling aspect of people getting free shit went away when the nightclubs got so huge, because the nightclubs went from nightclubs to day parties, like pool parties. So those guys were working sometimes double shifts. Like they'll do a pool party one day and then they're doing the nightclub. And the nightclubs, you know, in Vegas, they start at it. You can get in at 11, but they don't start really going until like 12, 1 o'clock. And they play until like 3:30, 4. And then if you really wanted to keep partying, they had after parties, after hour parties at like Dre's that went from like 4:30 to 10 a.m. and then roll right into the pool party at noon. Talk about no sleep. So they realized the money was in the nightclubs, and as much as they loved the gamblers, they didn't have to give as much free shit away because they got so much, they capitalized so much on making so much money. I mean, you had tables sometimes that would go for, back when I was involved, like 20, $30,000 a table. The closer you were to the DJ booth, I don't even know what they are now. Like, good lord, I mean, things are so much more expensive. Pool parties, like you get the cabana just for the afternoon pool party, 15,000. I don't know what they are now. And everybody crams in there, and you hang out and drink, and the DJ goes nuts. So um, that landscape has completely changed. Because when you were a big time gambler, you got mostly everything for free. And sometimes if you lost, they paid for your airfare to go home. So that means you really lost. like, I mean, you think about it. Like a first class flight home back then was like $700, $800 from Las Vegas to New Jersey. I mean, both ways you're spending $1,600, and there's a chance I can lose 10 or 20 grand. And they pick up my food and drinks, and it's a no brainer. No brainer. So the landscape has definitely changed since then. Um, yeah. So that's kind of like what goes on in Vegas. But, and again, like I haven't been out there in a while, so I don't, I'm sure it's even more expensive. The question is, on my sober journey, like we talk about the small W's and stacking them. When I first started out, what were some of the smaller ones that, so I think the question is like, what were some of the smaller ones that you were, that I used to overlook, but I kind of see now? Is that kind of like, yeah. Um, yeah, that's a great question because it wasn't even when I was, that question goes all the way back since I was a little kid because I never stacked the W's. I never lived in the moment. The days that I fully live in the moment, like I try as hard as I possibly can because it's really hard. And I think it's really hard for everybody because we have these phones in our hands 24/7, and we're always constantly flicking and flipping and thinking about looking ahead and how am I going to make $1 million so. But even way back when in the 1980s, like when there were no phones, I don't know if I lived in the moment back then. Like even like in Little League, like I always just checked it. Like I knew I was going to do it. I did it. Okay, on to the next thing. Instead of really just focusing on like what I do now and being sober, um, the little W's. You know, like I said in last week's episode about with my wife, just the fact that we didn't have to go to the ER and it was a terrible night, but she got out of it. It took a very long time, but it was a beautiful thing to see her finally be able to relax. That's a W. That is a big W. Um, Yesterday, getting a phone call from Ty's coach telling me what an unbelievable kid he is, what a great player he is. That's a that's a W. That like I think I would have just overlooked in the other days of not being sober. Um, I really, really try to stay, and it could be as simple as the little W's of getting all the stuff done in the morning that I needed to get done and be like, man, that all worked out perfectly, and saying thank you because I got it done. Most people, I know for a fact I didn't start doing this until recently, and just enjoying the fact that I you get something done in a meaningful time. Most people, I think, just go through it and be like, check the box, done. Check the box, done. I don't know if it's because, I guess it's a combination of both sobriety and us getting older and wiser and understanding that our time is more valuable. Because I say this all the time to my wife, and I know I'm going off a little bit, but I need to say this because I say it a lot. The most important thing in our life is time. And as we get older, it gets shorter and shorter. And when we're super young, like my 11-year-old, he's racing to become a teenager and a 20-year-old, and he wants to, do this and move off on his own, and he wants to make millions of dollars. And I'm like, you got to stay in the moment here. Like, be happy. I said this to him on Sunday. Be happy that we're outside in February playing miniature golf, and it's beautiful out. Don't rush it into like Monday school, and he, doesn't want to be there. Like, stay here. That's what I really want to teach him because as crazy as he is, like he's not my birth somebody. He has a lot of the same qualities I have, which is good and bad. It's good and bad. And I see a lot of that. But what I know now, what I did wrong with my kids when I was much younger, I can help correct what I can do with him. So again, that right there, small W. In your recovery process, did you have any fear of relapsing, and how did you cope with that? That's a great question. I know this sounds crazy, but I've never feared anything. I I've I I'm never. been afraid. The only one I ever feared, only person, is my father one time, and he was only 5'8", but he was my pops. But I don't fear anything, and I never, like I said, I have this mind that like once I tell myself I'm done, I'm done, and I got that from my pops because he did that with cigarettes. I watched him do it with cigarettes. He smoked Lucky Strikes Unfiltered, and I think I might have told this story, but I'll tell it again. My uncle had triple bypass, and he was gray and pale, and my mother went to see him in the hospital, and it scared her to death because she was a realist. She's realized that he was smoking the same cigarettes that my uncle was smoking, and that could happen to my dad. So she came home. She was very, very upset. And this is what I knew about true love, which I didn't understand until now, because like I said, with my wife, with SVT, like I want to take all that pain away from her. I want to be able to help her. When you can't, you feel helpless as a you know a man, because we want to fix things and make it better for the people we love. And I didn't realize this until now, that my dad quit smoking for my mom, not for him. So it's funny. I'll say I quit drinking and doing drugs. I did do it for me because I do love myself now, but like I really did it because my wife was going down a different path, and I wasn't going to go. You can't work together if you're not on the same page. So, um, no fear. Maybe sometimes a little bit of anger. And I guess I've always said this too. When I have anger, usually that equates to some anxiety. So maybe, I don't know, you got to dig really deep and want to go into this brain. Maybe there was some fear of like relapsing, and because that escape was fun for me, but I was doing bad shit. So it's not fun. And that's kind of like where I always say, like, well, it's not fun because you're really escaping from something deep down inside of what you've done already, or you're doing, or something that's happened to you. So never really fear, I don't think. And I don't look back and say, oh, God, I miss drinking. I don't do that. Like, I don't, like, my wife and I can go to a bar and sit at the bar and have dinner and drink Pellegrino, and she'll drink a bottle of flat water, or she'll have um, unsweetened iced tea. But I don't white knuckle it. I don't care if my friends around me are drinking. I don't care if they're doing drugs around me, and I don't Jones for it. I think I was blessed with a. I got that from my pops, and I truly call that a blessing, because most people do want to relapse, and it does happen, and that's a tough cycle to be in, for sure. So the question is, um, through my recovery, there was a lot of people I probably had to forgive or give forgiveness to people, including myself. Um, and what does that role play in the recovery? It's pretty much everything. Because once you're able to see, this is the thing with drugs and alcohol. When you're doing that to your body, you don't love yourself. And again, I'll say it over and over and over again. There's a deep root problem in there that usually you're trying to suppress and trying to mask the pain of whatever has happened. So until you can truly love yourself and forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made, and again, I say this too, God like put us on this earth to make mistakes and learn from our mistakes, not continually make the same mistakes. or make new mistakes. We're going to make mistakes, but like, I mean, fix the mistakes and learn from them. Don't make the same ones over and over again. And that's what happens when you get in this world of drugs and alcohol. You get in that vicious cycle of making that same mistake over and over again. And then it becomes even worse because it's a chemical, or the alcohol becomes dependent in your body. That's the scary part. Like when I tell you like the level of dependency I needed for um, opioids, like I couldn't function without taking something in the morning. It was tough for me to get out of bed. So like to overcome that, and then the forgiveness part, yeah, there was a lot of people I had to actually apologize to too. I made mistakes, but I learn every day now. That's the biggest thing. Like as long as I'm learning and trying to be a better person, you can't beat me. You can't beat me because mentally and physically, I'm stronger than ever. So even like the tough days, like today, lack of sleep, it's never anything like I used to put myself through. And I realized that like I didn't even think it was putting myself through a lot because I was self-medicating so much that I just thought it was normal. And I think the people around me, they started self-medicating more too. So I was probably a bad influence on them too. And now being separated from all that, yeah, it's uh it's refreshing, and there's been a lot of forgiveness. I like the Q&As. I like them as much as having somebody on because it makes me think, and it gives me a time to reflect. And like I said, I give you answers from my heart, and that's the most important thing. Like I my answer may not be perfect, and it may not be what, like, you'd be like, oh, there's no way that he could have quit opioids without going to rehab. Or I'm not lying. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different path. It really comes down to what you want to do as a person and how far you want to go with it. Most people, when they get on a good streak, they want to. It's almost like, oh, I got to go off onto a bad streak, and that's how their life goes. That's how my baseball career, like a roller coaster. Why do you want to do that? Why can't you just stay on a good path every single day, and know that there's going to be bumps in the road, but you can fix them? That's what I look forward to doing now. And I was always, and I will wrap it up, but I was always thinking about, oh, I'm going to retire at such a young age, and I'm going to play golf, and I'm going to sit at the club, and I'm going to have drinks, and I'm going to overlook the balcony and watch people hit balls. Well, I did all that at a very young age, and I did it to a point where it was like almost going to kill me. Now I look at things and like, man, I want to keep working and figuring stuff out. And it's not just about the money, but I like learning because there's so much stuff out there that I need to learn and get better at that I think will make me more successful even later in life. So I leave you guys with all that, and I do thank you for all the questions, and hopefully I gave you great answers because they were from the heart. And I look forward to doing more of those. So please continually follow us and click subscribe, give us some likes, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, anywhere where you can follow us on social media. I really do appreciate it because I want to continually get the word out there. God bless and have a great night.